I'm back at home and I have my coat and my hat on because it's still cold in here. It hasn't gotten heated up yet, so that's why I look like this. This morning, the day started at 7 o'clock, and I could tell right away that it was going to be an interesting day because there was a lively discussion among fellow Democrats about a bill that was going to be, two bills that were going to be up on the House floor. So I had a heads up from the very beginning that I needed to decide what I was going to do and why I was going to do it, and I was glad that I had a few hours to make the decision. Business and Labor started at 8:30. We heard an awesome bill by Representative McClafferty that put some teeth into the law against unlicensed electricians, plumbers, and realtors. Right now, if someone's operating without a license in any of those three fields, the board of those three fields basically sends them a letter saying, oh, stop that, and nothing else happens. And this would have been a law that gives the board the latitude to not only send that letter, but also investigate them and assess them a fine. And the IBEW, the plumbers and the pipe fitters, the realtors and the building trades were all here for this bill. The only opponent was the independent contractors, and the argument came down to one side that really thinks that an individual person who's having work done on their house should figure out whether or not the person is licensed or not first, and the other side that says we're never going to stop people from practicing without a license unless we can actually put some teeth into this bill. All the boards in Montana have to be self-sustaining. So if they spend any money trying to prosecute someone who's operating without a license, that costs them money. And the only way they can recoup that money, because they have to be self-sustaining, is to assess everyone who's a law-abiding business person a higher licensing fee in order to get their money back that they spent going after people who were unlicensed. And I think this solved this problem, but it's kind of a weird, possibly slippery slope. We also heard House Bills 224 and 225, which were two Chamber of Commerce bills that had a lot to do with tort reform. And it's really interesting hearing the two sides. I'm just really enjoying hearing all of this debate and learning about all of this. We took executive action on the House Bill 109 that I just said was a great bill, and it failed on a tie, 10-10. House Bills 184 and 186, we took executive action on. 186 was the loser pay bill, and it was tabled, and I'm not trying to call anybody out here or be too controversial, but I did hear someone say that the reason it got tabled is because the Tea Party was putting a ton of pressure on the Republicans who might not have voted for the bill, but were getting pressure from the Republicans to vote for it, and so it just got tabled so that the conversation would be over. I don't know if that's true or not true, but that was an interesting perspective to think about how we as politicians, I hate even calling myself that, but how we as politicians deal with the extreme factions in our party and in our constituency. We passed House Bill 232 and we failed House Bill 242, which was another drug testing bill, which would have allowed saliva tests and blood drawing and hair testing. And both sides almost unanimously agreed that we should not be infringing on people's rights in such an extreme way in the state of Montana. I was able to visit with an Operation Enduring Freedom veteran named Jesse Chadwick, who is in the Capitol today talking to both sides of the aisle about patient rights, and you'll see a picture of that at the end. I had lunch with some great ladies from Butte, and you'll see a picture of that as well. I spent some time trying to educate myself about House Bill 188 so I would know how I was going to vote and why. I listened to the initial hearing. I talked to other representatives. I went through all my emails to see if I could find anything from any constituents, and no one had anything to say about it. I had already spoken with a lobbyist about it, and so the more that I heard and the more that I learned, the stronger I felt about how I was going to vote, and that's really nice to know you have the confidence that you are doing the right thing and voting your conscience. So on the floor today, we heard House Bills 18, 19, 28, 81, 140, 182, 168, 188, and 189. I'm obviously not going to talk about all of those, but House Bill 19 had something that I haven't shown you guys yet. It was a pink fiscal note, and so if a fiscal note is amended in committee, then you get a new fiscal note and it's printed on pink paper. So right away today when I saw this, I knew that something was up. It was kind of interesting part of the process, how they color code all of these different papers. House Bill 140, I wanted to show because it is a chemistry teacher's dream. it is what I would call the bath salts bill or the spice bill. And so in our Montana code, we have this list of chemicals that are clearly against the law. And the problem is that people who want to get around the law will just slightly alter the chemical makeup of something that can get you high. And so then it's not against the law, and they can sell them in gas stations and market them to kids or whoever they want to. And so I wanted to show my chemistry teacher friends the crazy chemistry that is actually in Montana law. You can show that to your students and tell them that that's why they need to know about this stuff. And so instead of just adding more chemicals to the law every time and giving people the chance to play this cat and mouse game, they just put language in the law today that says that any derivative or relative to these chemical compounds is illegal. And so that'll prevent the bath salts and the spice from being, it's not legal in Montana anymore. I think this was a win for every Montana who cares about kids, teens, adults, everyone. This stuff is dangerous, and we almost all agreed on it. House Bill 182, you might want to look up. I really felt like it was an attempt to tell teachers exactly what and how to teach in their classroom, and I don't think that that's something that should be legislated from the Capitol. I think that we have a lot of professional organizations that do a really good job, and local school boards as well have control over that. House Bill 168 was a bill that set a state guideline on the amount of a certain chemical that can be in someone's system to consider them impaired with marijuana. And I might not ever vote with Dr. Creighton Kearns again, but I agreed with his comments today that this has not been studied enough and you should not put legislation before science. And there were okay arguments on both sides. One argument that was made is that there's a 5 nanogram per milliliter level for medical marijuana card holders, and this extends that level to everyone. That's the worst argument ever, because shouldn't the level for non-card holders be 0? So I think that the conversation today actually got a little bit off track when people started saying that. House Bill 188 was sponsored by 3 Butte people, and I voted against it. And I've always heard that if you do that, you kind of have a target on your back from then on out, and it'll be really interesting to see what my experience with that is. I felt really supported by all of the Butte delegation to just vote my conscience, and that's what I did. I felt no pressure to do anything different. And if anyone wants to talk about how that happened or how I made that decision, I'd be happy to, because the more I heard on the House floor and before in the research that I did, the more sure I was that I was doing the right thing. In local government, we passed Bill 245, which was to give cities the ability to dedicate parkland. And I talked the other day about the fact that I thought the Republicans were going to be all fired up about that, and we passed it unanimously, so I was wrong. We also passed the dumpster diving bill, which I did not think was going to go because it gives immunity against landfills. Passed it unanimously. We failed House Bill 156, and I'm glad. You might want to look into that. We had hearings on House Bills 258, which was a public notice bill, and House Bill 246, which is to give local governments the ability to either approve or deny land easements for people, anyone in the county. And so when you own land, you own the rights to that land, the mining rights, the water rights, the grazing rights, and you can choose to take one or more of those and either give it or sell it to another person. And people do this for conservation, but they also do this because it affects the value of their land. If you don't own the subdivision rights to your land and you go to sell it to somebody else, it's valued way lower if it's only valued as agricultural land. And so there was one poor guy, honestly, I'm not even being sarcastic, from Saco, who really truly feels like his property rights are being infringed because everyone around him is choosing to do these conservation easements. But there were 29 people who came and spoke against the bill, and they said, I'm a redneck, or I'm a rancher, or I'm a farmer, or I'm a landowner, a dirt farmer, just really, truly regular human beings who felt like their personal property rights would be taken away if they weren't allowed to do whatever they want to with their land. And I don't know how you could argue against that. I'll be so surprised if people still vote for this bill after hearing one person for it and 29 people against it. Thanks.